Greetings everyone, my name is Gigi and this is Let's Build, wherein I build a Lego set timed to different media and talk about the facts concerning the topic of the build. Today's build is the Lego Technic Mars Rover Perseverance versus the Nintendo 64 game Dune 64. As always, the game is played without glitches or cheats. The footage I am using for this game is for science and educational purposes. All footage is time-lapse. Some plot spoilers for this game series, the 93 Doom and Doom 64. The game also includes pixelated depictions of hunting demons and zombies, so you have been warned. Specifications for the Lego set. Give kids an adventure to remember as they build a Lego Technic toy version of NASA's Mars Perseverance rover. This building project is perfect for kids with a passion for science and technology and comes with an augmented reality app experience that lets them learn more about the environment on Mars and the rover's mission. A voyage to Mars. This toy model is packed with features that help kids learn more about the challenges facing the NASA Perseverance rover and its companion helicopter, Ingenuity. The rover features 360 degrees steering and a movable arm, plus fully articulated suspension that lets the vehicle maintain traction on all 6 wheels across uneven surfaces. Other buildable details include a power unit, antennae, cameras, and scientific instruments. Intuitive instructions. Let the Lego Builder app guide your youngster on an intuitive building adventure, allowing them to zoom in and rotate models in 3D, save sets, and track their progress. Feed a passion for science and technology. Kids aged 10 and up can learn more about the challenges of space exploration with this Lego Technic NASA Mars Rover Perseverance model toy. Conduct a test flight. This set includes a buildable toy version of NASA's Ingenuity helicopter, which accompanied the Perseverance rover and was used to test powered flight on Mars. AR brings the mission to life. The accompanying augmented reality app experience lets kids dive into the details of the rover and its mission. Explore the functions. Features 360-degree steering, movable arms, and fully articulated suspension that lets the vehicle travel across uneven surfaces, plus buildable scientific instruments. A gift for kids aged 10 and up. This Mars Perseverance rover toy set makes a gift idea for kids with a passion for space exploration or science and technology projects. Measurements. This Lego Technic building set measures over 9 inches high, 12.5 inches long, and 9 inches wide. A helping hand. Discover intuitive instructions in the Lego Builder app, where builders can zoom in and rotate models in 3D, track their progress, and save sets as they develop new skills. An introduction into engineering. Lego Technic buildable model sets feature realistic movement and mechanisms that introduce young Lego builders to the universe of engineering. High quality. Lego Technic components meet rigorous industry standards to ensure that they are consistent, compatible, and connect reliably every time. Safety first. Lego Technic components are dropped, heated, crushed, twisted, and analyzed to make sure they meet strict global safety standards. At this point, I would like to talk about the highlights of the Perseverance from the instruction booklet. This time, however, the booklet dives right into the build without any fanfare. Moving on to the real-life Perseverance. The Perseverance is a car-sized Mars rover designed to explore the Jezero crater on Mars as a part of NASA's Mars 2020 mission. It was manufactured by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and launched on July 30th, 2020 at 11:50 UTC, Universal Time. Confirmation that the rover successfully landed on Mars was received by February 18th, 2021, at 20:55 Universal Time. As of 13th March in 2025, Perseverance has been active on Mars for 1,444 sols, or 1,484 Earth days, or 4 years and 23 days, since its landing. Following the rover's arrival, NASA named the landing site Octavia E. Butler Landing. Perseverance has a similar design to its predecessor rover, Curiosity, although it was moderately upgraded. It carries 7 primary payload instruments, 19 cameras, and 2 microphones. The rover also carried the mini helicopter Ingenuity to Mars, an experimental technology testbed that made the first powered aircraft flight on another planet on April 19th, 2021. On January 18th, 2024, it made its 72nd and final flight, suffering damage on landing to its rotor blades, possibly all 4, causing NASA to retire it. The rover's goals included identifying ancient Martian environments capable of supporting life, seeking out evidence of former microbial life existing in those environments, collecting rock and soil samples to store on the Martian surface, and testing oxygen production from the Martian atmosphere to prepare for future crewed missions. The mission, despite the high-profile success of the Curiosity rover landing on August 2012, NASA's Mars exploration program was in a state of uncertainty in the early 2010s. Budget cuts forced NASA to pull out of a planned collaboration with the European Space Agency, or ESA, which included a rover mission. By the summer of 2012, a program that had been launching a mission to Mars every 2 years suddenly found itself with no missions approved after 2013. In 2011, the Planetary Science Decadal Survey, a report from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineerings, and Medicines, containing an influential set of recommendations made by the planetary science community, stated that the top priority of NASA's planetary exploration program in the decade between 2013 and 2022 should be to begin a NASA and ESA Mars sample return campaign, a 4-mission project to cache, receive, launch, and safely return samples of the Martian surface to Earth. The report stated that NASA should invest in a sample caching rover as the first step in this effort, with the goal of keeping costs under $2.5 billion. After the success of the Curiosity rover and in response to the recommendations of the Decadal Survey, NASA announced its intent to launch a new Mars rover mission by 2020 at the American Geophysical Union Conference in December 2012. Though initially hesitant to commit to an ambitious sample caching capability and subsequent follow-on missions, a NASA-convened science definition team for the Mars 2020 project released a report in July of 2013 that the mission should select and store a compelling suite of samples in a returnable cache. Science objectives. The Perseverance rover has 4 main science objectives that support the Mars exploration program's science goals. Looking for habitability, identify past environments that were capable of supporting microbial life, seeking biosignatures, seek signs of possible past microbial life in those habitable environments, particularly in specific rock types known to preserve signs over time. caching samples. Collect core rock and regolith, unconsolidated and loose soil samples to store them within the rover and on the Martian surface as a backup for delivery to a future sample return rocket. Prepare for humans. Test oxygen production from the Martian atmosphere. In the first science campaign, dubbed Crater Floor, Perseverance performed an arcing dive southward from its landing site to the SETA unit to perform a toe dip into the unit to collect remote sensing measurements of geologic targets. After that, it returned to the crater floor fracturing rough to collect the first core sample there. Passing by the Octavia E. Butler landing site concluded the first science campaign. The second campaign, Fan Front, included several months of travel toward the Three Forks, where Perseverance accessed geologic locations at the base of the ancient delta of the Neretva River, as well as ascending the delta by driving up the valley wall to the northwest. The third and fourth campaigns were called Upper Fan and Margin Unit, and the fifth campaign, Northern Rim, in progress as of December 2024, is exploring the northern part of the southwestern section of Jezero's Rim to study rocks from deep down inside Mars that were thrown upwards to form the crater rim after the impact 3.9 billion years ago that formed the Jezero crater. The results. The scientific results as of 2025 are as follows. According to NASA, the mission has made discoveries about the volcanic history, habitability, and role of water in Jezero crater. Specifically, they reported that instead of all the rocks in Jezero crater being sedimentary, being transported into the crater by wind or water, several types of igneous rock were discovered, which showed evidence of interaction with water. Additionally, at a rock named Wildcat Ridge, located within Jezero's well-preserved sedimentary fan deposit, Perseverance found evidence for an ancient lake environment. Not only were these sediments likely deposited in a standing body of water, but they also continued to interact with water long after they were formed. The environments recorded within the rocks at Wildcat Ridge would have been habitable for ancient microbial life, and this type of rock is ideal for preserving possible signs of ancient life. They also found that sediments entering Jezero's lake were deposited in a delta, and evidence for late-stage, high-energy flooding that carried large boulders into the crater. The MOXIE experiment produced 122 grams of oxygen from carbon dioxide. The microphone studies showed that the speed of sound is slower and the volumes of sound transmitted through the atmosphere is lower than on Earth. Pixel, P-I-X-L, found that the Zeta Formation and a rock at its Otis Peak contained ovaline, phosphates, sulfates, clays, carbonate minerals, silicate minerals, augite, pyroxene, feldspathic mesostasis, various iron, chromium, titanium spinels, and marylite, perchlorate, feldspar, magnesite, siderate, oxides, as well as minerals with composition including magnesium, iron, chlorine, and sodium. RIMFAX, RIMFAX, revealed findings consistent with a subsurface dominated by solid rock and a mafic material, and that the crater floor experienced a period of erosion before the deposition of the overlaying delta strata. The regularity and horizontality of the basalt delta sediments observed in the radar cross sections indicate that they were deposited in a low-energy lake environment. Design. The Perseverance design evolved from its predecessor, the Curiosity rover. The two rovers share a similar body plan, landing system, cruise stage, and power system, but the design was improved in several ways for Perseverance. Engineers designed the rover wheels to be more robust than Curiosity's wheels, which had sustained some damage. Perseverance has thicker, more durable aluminum wheels with reduced width and greater diameter, 52.5 centimeters, than Curiosity's 50 centimeter wheels. The aluminum wheels were covered with cleats for traction and curved titanium spokes for springy support. The heat shield for the rover was made out of phenolic impregnated carbon ablator, or PICA, PICA, to allow it to withstand up to 2,400 degrees Fahrenheit of heat. Like Curiosity, the rover includes a robotic arm, although Perseverance's arm is longer and stronger, measuring 2.1 meters. The arm hosts an elaborate rock coring and sampling mechanism to store geologic samples from the Martian surface in sterile caching tubes. There is also a secondary arm hidden below the rover that helps store the chalk-sized samples. This arm is known as the Sample Handling Assembly, SHA, and is responsible for moving the soil samples to various stations within the Adaptive Caching Assembly on the underside of the rover. These stations include volume assessment, measuring the length of a sample, imaging, seal dispensing, and hermetic seal station, among others. Owing to the small space in which the SHA must operate, as well as load requirements during the sealing activities, the sample caching system is the most complicated, most sophisticated mechanism that we have ever built, tested, and readied for spaceflight. The combination of larger instruments, new sampling and caching system, and modified wheels makes Perseverance heavier, weighing 1,025 kilograms, compared to Curiosity at 899 kilograms, a 14% increase. The rover's multi-mission radioisotope thermoelectric generator, MMRTG, has a mass of 45 kilograms and uses 4.8 kilograms of plutonium 238 oxide as its power source. The radioactive decay of plutonium 238, which has a half-life of 87.7 years, gives off heat which is converted into electricity, approximately 110 watts at launch. This will decrease over time as its power source decays. The MMRTG charges two lithium-ion rechargeable batteries, which power the rover's activities and must be recharged periodically. Unlike solar panels, the MMRTG provides engineers with significant flexibility in operating the rover's instruments even at night, during dust storms, and through winter. The rover's computer uses the BAE Systems RAD 750 radiation-hardened single-board computer based on a ruggedized PowerPC G3 microprocessor, the PowerPC 750. The computer contains 128 megabytes of volatile DRAM and runs at 133 megahertz. The flight software runs on the VxWorks operating system, which is written in C and is able to process 4 gigabytes and NAND non-volatile memory on a separate card. Perseverance relies on 3 antennae for telemetry, all of which are relayed through craft currently in orbit around Mars. The primary UHF antenna can send data from the rover at a maximum rate of 2 megabits per second. The 2 slower X-band antennae provide communications redundancies. The instruments. NASA considered nearly 60 proposals for rover instrumentation, On July 31st, 2014, NASA announced the 7 instruments that would make up the payload for the rover. The Mars Oxygen ISRU experiment, or MOXIE, an exploration technology investigation to produce a small amount of oxygen, or O2, from Martian atmospheric carbon dioxide. On April 20th, 2021, 5.37 grams of oxygen were produced in an hour, with 9 more extractions planned over the course of 2 Earth years to further investigate the instrument. This technology could be scaled up in the future for human life support or to make a rocket fuel for return missions. Planetary Instrument for X-ray Lithochemistry, the Pixel. An X-ray fluorescent spectrometer to determine the fine-scale elemental composition of Martian surface materials. Radar Imager for Mars Subsurface Experiment, or RIMFAX, a ground-penetrating radar to image different ground densities, structural layers, buried rocks, meteorites, and detect underground water ice and salty brine at 10 meters of depth. The RIMFAX is being provided by the Norwegian Defense Research Establishment, or FFI. Mars Environmental Dynamics Analyzer, or MEDA, a set of sensors that measure temperature, wind speed and direction, pressure, relative humidity, radiation, and dust particle size and shape. It is provided by Spain's Centro de Astrobiología. SuperCam, an instrument suite that can provide imaging, chemical composition analysis, and mineralogy in rocks and regolith from a distance. It is an upgraded version of the ChemCam on the Curiosity rover, but with 2 lasers and 4 spectrometers that will allow it to remotely identify biosignatures and assess the past habitability. SuperCam is used in conjunction with Aegis targeting system. Los Alamos National Laboratory, the Research Institute in Astrophysics and Planetology, or IRAP. In France, the French Space Agency, CNES, the University of Hawaii, and the University of Valladolid in Spain cooperated in the SuperCam's development and manufacture. Mastcam-Z, a stereoscopic imaging system with the ability to zoom. Many photos were included in the published NASA photo gallery, including RAW, scanning habitable environments with Raman and luminescence for organics and chemicals, or SHERLOC. An ultraviolet Raman spectrometer that uses fine-scale imaging and an ultraviolet UV laser to determine fine-scale mineralogy and detect organic compounds. There are additional cameras and 2 audio microphones, the first working microphones on Mars, that will be used for engineering support during landing, driving, and collecting samples. Mars Ingenuity Helicopter Experiment. The Ingenuity helicopter, powered by solar-charged batteries, was sent to Mars in the same bundle with Perseverance. With a mass of 1.8 kilograms, the helicopter demonstrated the reality of flight in the rarefied Martian atmosphere and the potential usefulness of aerial scouting for rover missions. It carried 2 cameras but no scientific instruments and communicated with Earth via a base station on board Perseverance. Its pre-launch experimental test plan was 3 flights in 45 days, but it far exceeded its expectations and made 72 flights in nearly 3 years. After its first few flights, it made incrementally more ambitious ones, several of which were recorded by Perseverance cameras. The first flight was April 19, 2021, at 07:15 Universal Time, with confirmation from data reception at 10:15 Universal Time. It was the first powered flight by any aircraft on another planet. On January 18, 2024, it made its 72nd and final flight, suffering the loss of a rotor blade, imaged by Perseverance, lying on the sand roughly 15 meters distant from the upright body of Ingenuity, causing NASA to retire it. The name: Associate Administrator of NASA's Science Mission Directorate, Thomas Zurbuchen, selected the name Perseverance following a nationwide K-12 student Name the Rover contest that attracted more than 28,000 proposals. A 7th grade student, Alexander Mather from Lake Braddock Secondary School in Burke, Virginia, submitted the winning entry at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. In addition to the honor of naming the rover, Mather and his family were invited to NASA's Kennedy Space Center to watch the rover's July 2020 launch from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. Mather wrote this in his winning essay: curiosity, insight, spirit, opportunity. If you think about it, all these names of past Mars rovers are qualities we possess as humans. We are always curious and seek opportunity. We have the spirit and insight to explore the moon, Mars, and beyond. But if rovers are to be the qualities of us as a race, we miss the most important thing: perseverance. We as humans evolved as creatures who could learn to adapt to any situation, no matter how harsh. We are a species of explorers, and we will meet many setbacks on the way to Mars. However, we can persevere. We, not as a nation but as humans, will not give up. The human race will always persevere into the future. Mars Transit. The Perseverance rover lifted off successfully on July 30th, 2020 at 11:50 Universal Time aboard the United Launch Alliance Atlas V aboard a United Launch Alliance Atlas V launch vehicle from Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. The rover took 29 weeks to travel to Mars and made its landing in Jezero Crater on February 18, 2021, to begin its science phase. After May 17, 2022, the rover will move uphill and examine rocks on the surface for evidence of past life on Mars. On its return downhill, it will collect sample rocks to be retrieved and examined by future expeditions. The successful landing of Perseverance in Jezero Crater was announced at 20:55 Universal Time on February 18, 2021. The signal from Mars taking 11 minutes to arrive at Earth. The rover touched down at 18.4446 degrees north, 77.4509 degrees east, roughly 1 kilometer southeast of the center of its 7.7 kilometers by 6.6 kilometers wide landing ellipse. It came down pointed almost directly to the southeast, with the RTG on the back of the vehicle pointing northwest. The descent stage of sky crane, parachute, and heat shield all came to rest within 1.5 kilometers of the rover. Having come within 5 meters of its target landing was more accurate than any previous Mars landing, a feat enabled by the experience gained from Curiosity's landing and the use of the new steering technology. One such new technology is the Terrain Relative Navigation, or TRN, a technique in which the rover compares images of the surface taken during its descent with reference maps, allowing it to make last-minute adjustments to its course. The rover also uses the images to select a safe landing site at the last minute, allowing it to land in relatively non-hazardous terrain. This enables it to land much closer to its science objectives than previous missions, which all had to use a landing ellipse devoid of hazards. The landing occurred in the late afternoon, with the first images taken at 15:53 on the mission clock, meaning local mean solar time, the landing took place shortly after Mars passed through its northern vernal equinox, at the start of the astronomical spring, the equinox at the end of March on Earth. The parachute descent of the Perseverance rover was photographed by the HiRISE high-resolution camera on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, or MRO. Jezero Crater is a paleo-lake basin. It was selected as the landing site for this mission in part because paleo-lake basins tend to contain percolites. Astrobiologist Dr. Kenda Lynch's work in analog environments on Earth suggests that the composition of the crater, including the bottom set deposits accumulated from the 3 different sources in the area, is a likely place to discover evidence of percolate-reducing microbes, such as bacteria are living or were formerly living on Mars. A few days after landing, Perseverance released the first audio recorded on the surface of Mars, capturing the sound of Martian wind. During its travels on Mars, NASA scientists had observed around Sol 341, February 4th, 2022, that a small rock had dropped into one of its wheels while the rover was studying the Maz Rock Formation. The rock was visible from one of the hazard avoidance cameras and was determined not to be harmful to the rover's mission. The rock has since stayed on Perseverance wheel for around 427 sols, or 439 days, as the rover traveled over 6 miles on the Martian surface. NASA deemed that Perseverance had adopted a pet rock for its journey. Later, by May 2024, the rover picked up another pet rock named Dwayne. Oh, so punny. It is planned for Perseverance to visit the bottom and upper parts of the 3.4 to 3.8 billion year old Neverta Vallis Delta, the smooth and etched parts of the Jezero Crater floor deposits interpreted as volcanic ash or aeolian airfall deposits, and placed before the formation of the delta, the ancient shoreline covered with transverse aeolian ridges, or dunes, and mass wasting deposits, and finally it is planned to climb onto the Jezero Crater rim. In its progressive commissioning and tests, Perseverance made its first test drive on March 4th, 2021. NASA released photographs of the rover's first wheel tracks on Martian soil. In support of the NASA ESA Mars sample return, rock, regolith, Martian soil, and atmosphere samples are being cached by Perseverance. As of October 2023, 27 out of the 43 sample tubes have been filled, including 8 igneous rock samples, 12 sedimentary rock sample tubes, and silica-cemented carbonate rock sample tube, 2 regolith sample tubes, an atmosphere sample tube, and 3 witness tubes. Before launch, 5 of the 43 tubes were designated witness tubes and filled with materials that would capture particulates in the ambient environment of Mars. Out of 43 tubes, 3 witness sample tubes will not be returned to Earth and will remain on Rover, as the sample canister will only have 30 tube slots. Further, 10 of the 43 tubes are left as backups at the Three Forks Sample Depot. Discoveries. In July 2024, NASA's Perseverance rover discovered leopard spots on a reddish rock nicknamed Cheyava Falls. In July 2024, NASA's Perseverance rover discovered leopard spots on a reddish rock nicknamed Cheyava Falls in Mars's Jezero Crater. that has some indications that it may have hosted microbial life billions of years ago, but further research is needed. Which brings us now to our game. Every time the fiery place demons lived is demons every time the fiery place where demons live is referenced, I will be using the word heck. Doom 64 is a 1997 first-person shooter game developed and published by Midway Games for the Nintendo 64. It is the second spin-off game in id Software's Doom series after Final Doom of '96, and the fourth game in the series overall. A remaster was developed by Night Dive Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Windows, and Xbox One in March 2020, and for Stadia in May of 2020. Doom 64 was developed from 1994 by Midway Studios San Diego under supervision of id Software, the main developer of the Doom franchise, and was tentatively titled Doom: The Absolution. It has a customized version of the Doom engine, enabling new kinds of level geometry and dynamic colored lighting. It has new sprite graphics for weapons and monsters. Doom 64 received positive reviews from critics, praising its graphics, level design, soundtrack, and atmosphere, with some criticizing the lack of new gameplay elements compared to the previous games of the series. It gained a cult following with several fan-made PC source ports and mods. Gameplay. Doom 64's gameplay is similar to that of earlier Doom games. The player must advance through 28 story levels and 4 secret levels by battling demons, collecting weapons and keys, and activating switches to reach the level's exit while surviving deadly ambushes and traps. The Doom engine and gameplay elements were customized, and all visual assets such as weapon and monster graphics are unique to Doom 64. All the weapons from Doom 2 are present, but with new sprites and sound effects. The chainsaw has 2 blades instead of 1, the fists have blood-stained gloves instead of brass knuckles, the plasma gun has an electric core that emits a sparking sound, the rocket launcher has a small kickback, the shotgun's priming handle is at the grip instead of under the barrel, and the double-barrel super shotgun reloads faster and causes kickback. There is also a new weapon named the Unmaker, which uses hit scan but looks like a projectile weapon. It uses the same cell ammunition as the plasma gun and BFG 9000. It had originated in the Doom Bible in '92 and was planned for the original Doom in '93 but never appeared. Its appearance in Doom 64 is its only official appearance prior to Doom Eternal, in which it is spelled UNMAYKR. With the power of 3 ancient artifacts found throughout the game, it becomes more powerful by shooting 3 laser beams, at quicker rate than usual, instead of 1. The first artifact increases the laser speed, the second artifact adds a second laser, and the third artifact allows the weapon to fire 3 simultaneous lasers, which can automatically aim separately from one another, allowing the weapon to attack 3 different enemies at once with huge amounts of rapid damage. Since this is the 4th game in the series overall, I want to catch us up on the story so far. The plot of Doom 93. In the future, an unnamed Marine is posted to a dead-end assignment on Mars after assaulting a superior officer who ordered his unit to fire on civilians. The Union Aerospace Corporation, which operates radioactive waste facilities there, allows the military to conduct secret teleportation experiments that turn deadly. A base on Phobos urgently requests military support, while Deimos disappears entirely, and the Marine joins a combat force to secure Phobos. He secures the perimeter as ordered while the entire response team is wiped out. With no way off the moon and armed only with a pistol, he enters the base intent on revenge. In Knee-Deep in the Dead, the Marine fights demons and possessed humans in the military and waste facilities on Phobos. The episode ends with the Marine defeating two powerful Barons of Heck, guarding a teleporter to the Deimos base. After the battle, the Marine passes through the teleporter and is knocked unconscious by a horde of enemies, awakening only with a pistol. In Shores of Heck, the Marine fights through corrupted research facilities on Deimos, culminating in the defeat of a gigantic cyberdemon. From an overlook, he discovers that the moon is floating above Heck and rappels down the surface. In Inferno, the Marine battles through Heck itself and destroys a cybernetic spider demon that masterminded the invasion of the moons. When a portal to Earth opens, the Marine steps through to discover that Earth has been invaded. Thy Flesh Consumed follows the Marine's initial assault on the Earth invaders, setting the stage for Doom 2. Doom 64 plot. Following the Doom Marine's success at thwarting Heck in Doom, Doom 2, Heck on Earth, and the final Doom storyline, a planetary policy is established to quarantine the UAC research installations with apocalyptic levels of radiation. For years, the installation stood motionless and abandoned, until a long-forgotten satellite monitoring one of the installations, barely functioning due to years of being subject to high levels of radiation, sends a message back to Earth. The message indicates that a single entity, with vast rejuvenation powers and masked by the extreme radiation levels, escaped detection in its crippled state. This entity systematically altered decaying dead carnage back into corrupted living tissue, resurrecting the demons. As the only experienced survivor of the Doom episodes, the Marine is sent in alone to exterminate them. Later, he realizes the demons had planned for this, after he unknowingly allowed himself to be lured back into Heck. The demons are unable to defeat him, and with the Unmaker, he eventually battles and offs the Mother Demon. The game ends with the Marine, no longer capable of having a normal life following his encounters with Heck's forces, deciding to remain in Heck forever to ensure that no demon ever rises again. In the Lost levels from the 2020 remaster, the story continues as the Mother Demon was revealed to have a sister called Resurrector. It banishes the Marine back to a UAC base, forcing him to fight his way back to Heck to stop the demons. It branches the storyline between the original games with the 2016 reboot of Doom and Doom Eternal. Development. Doom 64 was developed by Midway Games at its San Diego studio. id Software, the primary developer of the Doom franchise, supervised the project. Development began in late 1994. Its tentative title of The Absolution was changed to Doom 64 for brand recognition, and reused as a name of a last level. Midway stated that a multiplayer mode was not included because Nintendo did not provide the necessary resources for multiplayer programming. Midway justified the decision based on alleged slowdown during split-screen multiplayer in other games on the console and the competitive nature of the mode. A Midway representative stated, "Everyone knows that the best part of the multiplayer is not knowing where your opponent is, and with a 4-player split screen, everyone can easily see where their opponents are." The environments were built from 3-dimensional polygon models, and the enemies were created by pre-rendering sprites with SGI workstations. The Nightmare Imp was originally developed for the PlayStation version of Doom and appeared in a near-complete beta of the game, but was removed just prior to release for unknown reasons. It debuted in Doom 64 instead. Doom 64 was slated to be a North American launch game, but near the deadline, id Software expressed dissatisfaction with many of the level designs, so Midway postponed the game until April '97 while redesigning the levels. Nintendo's then recent decision to remove the ability to run over animals from Nintendo 64's version of Cruisin' USA raised concerns about the possibility of censoring Doom 64, but Midway Vice President of Software Mike Abbott said Nintendo had not voiced any concerns about the game's violent content. He pointed out that Cruisin' USA was perceived by the public as a family game, while the Doom series was targeted towards mature gamers, making violent content less of a concern. The music and sound effects were composed by Aubrey Hodges, who had created the original sound effects and music for the PlayStation version 2 years earlier. The original Doom 64 team was working on a potential sequel entitled Doom Absolution, designed only for two-player death matches soon after the first game was released, but canceled it. Because id Software was impressed with the team's work on Doom 64, they were assigned to the Nintendo 64 version of Quake at this time. Midway shipped Doom 64 on March 27, 1997, for release on April 4th. Reception. By the time Doom 64 was released, the original Doom had been converted to nearly every platform capable of running it. Critics agreed that Doom 64 was by far the best-looking Doom to date, exceeding even the PC version. They were more enthusiastic about the level designs, deeming them imaginative and much more challenging than those of the original Doom. A next-generation critic remarked that even the most skillful Doom fans will have their hands full, and pushing door switches more often causes whole rooms to rearrange and fold out into new shapes. However, most reviewers said that the new graphics and levels were not enough to keep the game from feeling like yet another port of the original Doom. Pierre Schneider of IGN concluded, "Make no mistake about it, this is the best update to Doom so far, but if you've played the PC, PSX, SNES, Mac, Saturn, etc. versions to death, you can do without this one." GamePro disagreed with the majority on this point, stating that Doom 64 pumps the tried-and-true corridor shooter formula full of life, with another challenging, intense experience that showcases the system's capabilities. They rated it a perfect 5.0 out of 5 in all 4 categories: graphics, sound, control, and fun factor. Sean Smith of Electronic Gaming Monthly instead regarded the lack of advancements in the basic Doom gameplay as a positive. "Some of you may want to see your Space Marine jumping around or swimming underwater. Purists wouldn't want these features added because Doom wasn't about that stuff." I'll have to agree with the purists. Most critics praised the game's musical score for its atmospheric effect. Schneider and GamePro were both pleased with how well the analog controls worked, but Jeff Gersman of GameSpot said it was off and said of the game overall, "On paper, Doom 64 sounds better than the original could have ever hoped to be, but the end result feels more like a bastardization of the original." Comparing it to a contemporary Nintendo 64 shooter, Turok Dinosaur Hunter, Schneider and GamePro both remarked that Doom 64 has less freedom of exploration and depth of control, but is more intense and anxiety-filled. Doom 64 has garnered a cult following, with multiple fan-made PC source ports compatible with PC WAD files. Most prominently, Doom 64 TC from 2003 is a massive collaboration PC fan port led by Samuel Villarreal to add numerous enemy variants and levels, and Doom 64 EX is a source port to recreate the original experience made by Villarreal, who had worked on Doom 64 TC and a Nintendo DS port from Doom 64. Patrick Klepek from Kotaku described it as the most underrated Doom game. Others praised the game for some of the best and most unique level designs and for its darker and more sinister tone in contrast to the intense and aggressive action of the original Doom. From the Doom 64 manual, I did have to change a few words here and there. Welcome to Doom 64, a lightning-fast virtual reality adventure. The gameplay for Doom 64 is quite simple. There are demons. The demons are bad. They stink. They're vicious. They eat human flesh, and if they get the chance, they'll show you just how much they like Marines. You, the tough Marine, are returning to a space installation you once saved from these vile beasts. Unfortunately, you weren't as thorough as you thought, and their carcasses were resurrected. Use your weapons to kill the demons. They're a lot smarter and have seen all of your tricks, but you're still a smart, pissed-off Marine. Each level contains an exit. Find each one, follow the demons' progression back to their world, and destroy these creatures forever. The story so far? The past. Your fatigue was enormous, the price for encountering pure evil. Hell was a place no mortal was meant to experience. Stupid military doctors, their tests and treatments were of little help. In the end, what did it matter? It was all classified and sealed. The nightmares continued. Demons. So many demons. Relentless. Pouring through. Far away. The planetary policy was clear. An absolute quarantine was guaranteed by apocalyptic levels of radiation. The empty dark corridors stand motionless, abandoned. The installation sealed. The present. A long-forgotten relay satellite, barely executing, decayed by years of bombarding neutrons, activates and sends its final message to Earth. The satellite's message was horrific. From the planetary void, there came energy signatures unlike anything sampled before. The classified archives are opened. The military episode, codenamed Doom, were not actually complete. A single entity with vast rejuvenation powers masked by the extreme radiation levels escaped detection. In its crippled state, it systematically altered decaying dead carnage back into corrupted living tissue. The mutations were devastating. The demons have returned even stronger and more vicious than before. As the only experienced survivor of the Doom episode, your commission is reactivated. Your assignment is clear. Merciless extermination. The enemies. Zombie men. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Except in this case. These guys may look like your old buddies, but now they're nothing more than pistol-toting, bipedal maggots. Waste 'em. Shotgun guy. Ditto. Except these guys are meaner and tougher. These walking shotguns will provide you with a few extra holes if you're not careful. Imp. You thought an imp was a cute little dude in a red suit with a pitchfork. Think again. This imp heaves balls of fire down your throat and takes several bullets to smoke. It's time to find a better weapon than a pistol if you're gonna face more than one of these mutants. The Nightmare Imp. An imp is bad enough, but picture a faster, more aggressive one. Now the bad news. He's harder to see, too. The Bull Demon. Sorta like shaved gorillas, except with horns, big heads, and lots of teeth. They don't go down easy. Get too close, and they'll rip your sorry head right off. Spectre. Great. Just what you needed. An invisible, nearly monster. These beasts will eat your face off. Did you expect a walk in the park? Lost souls. It's tough. It flies. It's on fire. The Caco Demon. They float in the air, belch ball lightning, and have one horrendously big mouth. If you get too close to one of these monstrosities, you're toast. Pain Elemental. What a name. And what a pain in the butt. Getting rid of him is almost as bad as letting him live. Heck Knight. Tough as a dump truck and nearly as big. These Goliaths are the worst thing on two legs since the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Baron of Heck. You thought the Heck Knights were bad? These guys make them look like choir boys. You better have a good supply of ammo and armor to take on this demon. Mancubus. The only good thing about this fat tub of demon is that he's a nice wide target. Good thing, because it takes a lot of hits to puncture him. He pumps out fireballs like nobody's business. Arachnotron. Think of the pain a Black Widow causes when you disturb her nest. Then think of what happens when you stir up one the size of an M60 tank. Cyber Demon. Half machine, half raging horned devil. This walking nightmare has a rocket launcher for an arm and will definitely reach out and touch you. Make sure you're fully loaded before you take on this guy. Eternal life after death. If you die, better luck next time. You restart the level at the beginning with just your pistol. It's a shame to lose all that weaponry you've collected, but you can't take that stuff with you. That's just the way it is. Monsters you ended before are back again. Just like you. Yeah. Since the discovery that Mars was an inhospitable planet became well documented, much of the pop culture and media regarding the Red Planet turned to horror. I do count the kids and YA movies as horror, and I would argue that my favorite Mars film, The Martian, is also horror, being that the premise of being abandoned and left for dead on a dead planet while trying to survive is pretty horrifying, which is why I chose to play Doom 64. The combination of humans attempting to play God while terraforming Mars and the moons, with the worst possible outcome happening, plays to our fears of the unknown. Doom is also a classic game that takes place on one of the moons of Mars and then on Mars itself. Our total build time today, 4 hours, 44 minutes, 27 seconds. It took 6 hours, 51 minutes, and 24 seconds to finish the game. This was the first time playing Doom 64 since the early 2000s. So there was a bit of backtracking and getting lost since the game was being played from memory. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Remember to like, subscribe, share, ring that bell, all the things for the YouTubes. Goodbye.